Welcome to a recorded version of the second part of the April 21st Focus Community Engagement Session number 2. Focus, which stands for Future of Crystal Lake Library Under Study, is a community-wide effort to gather input and feedback from the community regarding different aspects of the future and possible options for improving library service. Tonight's presenters are Catherine I. Martins, Director of the Crystal Lake Public Library, and Joe Huberty, Partner with Engberg Anderson Architects. Mr. Huberty will continue tonight's presentation on the topic, Are We Future Ready? And now, Session 2b.
What a great time to be thinking about the future of libraries. Between technology and how we think about community building and recognizing the opportunity that a public library presents to all of us, this is the best time to be asking the questions, are we future ready? What do we want for our library? How do we get there? You've asked us to think about state-of-the-art trends. What do the professionals think about library design? What do they think about the needs in the community? And I would like to suggest that you need to be answering some of those questions. There are certainly standards that are applicable. There's guidelines we can call into play. There's the experience of your neighbors, and that's all relevant. But ultimately, this will be your library, and you need to help make some of the decisions that will frame your vision of the future. And only once we have that vision of the future can we step back and decide that you're future ready, or that with a series of improvements, you can be future ready, or that you really need to take a dramatic step to make sure that this community can in fact embrace the future that it wants for itself. That's a great way to start. Ultimately, we have to step back and meet a series of pragmatic measures. And I think ultimately, a good contemporary library is defined by being community specific. It's got to be pragmatic, relevant, useful. It's got to be flexible, because what we want today is going to be different from what we want tomorrow. We need this building to be cost effective. We know that any community endeavor requires a significant investment, and we want to make sure that every decision we make today minimizes the amount of money that the community has to invest, either in the building or in the staff or in the collection, to maintain that relevance that we hope it will enjoy on opening day. So we're going to show you a bunch of images from a bunch of libraries. For the most part, these are here in the Midwest, and they represent those communities' vision for themselves. There's an opportunity here to see the connection between the buildings and the services that they desired. There's also an opportunity to recognize that none of these is Crystal Lake. And we want to borrow where it seems appropriate, and we want to ignore where it seems appropriate. So as you're looking at these examples, this isn't Joe's trying to convince you to do this, or Crystal Lake really should consider this. So let's take a step all the way back to, we're talking about a building today. A good library is a good building first and foremost, and that's not to be taken for granted. We think about the many attributes that make up a good building. And the first, most basic element is good structure. We want solid bones. We want this thing to be able to support the weight of many, many book stacks. Paper is heavy. We want to own many books, and we want to make sure that those can be accommodated in multiple configurations. And we want to make sure that the building is tall enough for stacks, tall enough for light to bounce around and bring light down into those stacks, tall enough so that we can put a reasonable mechanical system above our ceiling, and tall enough so that we never have to worry about all of those things getting in the way of each other. So first, it's got to be a good building. We want to think about the building as being robust in its infrastructure. A mechanical system should be silent, it should be comfortable, it should be easy to control, it should keep us warm in the winter and cool in the summer. It should allow us to change the configuration of the spaces served without a lot of hassle. And it should really be that unseen element that keeps us all cool and comfortable. After good structure and a good mechanical system, we want good lighting. More than anything else, this will help us to improve the customer satisfaction with their library experience. Uniform lighting, appropriate light levels, the appropriate controllability for specific tasks, whether it be reading, using a computer, engaged in a high-level, high-energy pursuit. Lighting is ultimately the key to satisfaction for many people when they come to the library. A building needs to be inviting. We talk a lot about the functional aspects, the functional attributes of a library. At some level, we have to recognize that people engage buildings. And the first thing we look for is a sign that we're welcome to come in. Climbing up a series of steps to get into the front door, not so welcoming. Trying to find the front door from the parking lot, not an ideal arrangement. A good public building invites you from the street edge to come onto the site and then into the building. And this is true whether you arrive by car, on foot, or via bicycle. A building just calls out to you and says, come on in. Let's take advantage of all the good things that we've collected here for your use. When we do get into that building, we're going to find two things. Spaces where we can get things and spaces where we can do things. I think we all think of the library in its traditional mode of being a place to get things. And those things remain important. Whether it's something good to read, something good to listen to, something good to watch. The library in many ways has been our access point for something interesting and lively, something that can support our intellectual pursuits, something that can just be a good way to recreate, to relax, to enjoy life. When we think about the changes in a modern library, we recognize that the library is no longer that warehouse that we grew up in. It isn't so much about owning items, it's about circulating items. A book has value when people take it out and read it, not when it sits on a shelf and can be counted as part of an inventory. So we want to promote that ability of the library to get its collection into the hands of people and out the doors. And that's the biggest change. Library stack height is coming down. We're not putting things on the bottom shelf. We're spreading aisles out. We're turning books so that they can be face out. And please, let us judge books by their cover. It's what we want to do. It's how we decide what we're going to open our minds to. We want to encourage people to browse the collection by opening it up and taking a look at the contents. This is much more likely when there's a place to rest your feet, to light, to spend some time to flip through some of the material. It's much more likely that you'll take something home if you have a sense of what's inside those covers, if you have a chance to read the liner notes. So places to sit, places to access a collection, places to access technology, all jumbled together. This compartmentalization really doesn't make sense in terms of the way people behave in a library. And so the intermingling of seating with collections is a key attribute of a successful library. It's a place to read and a place to browse. We think primarily of collections as being accessed inside the building, but in many ways a contemporary building extends that accessibility. A modern library offers you the opportunity to return materials after normal hours. A drive-up book return is the second most requested library service that we hear. A contemporary library also gives you the opportunity to pick up materials after normal hours. It's an acknowledgement that we don't all live the same lifestyle, that we don't all keep the same hours. And so if we can have a dispenser that allows access to aspects of the collection, that would be fantastic. If there's an opportunity to pick up materials that we've put on hold after normal hours in a set of lockers, that would be fantastic. So thinking about the opportunity to get the most out of this building, not just between 9 and 9, but truly 24/7, is a great way to engage the community and give them the maximum return on the investment that they've made. All of that is wonderful in and of itself, and if we can make those improvements, we've taken a big step towards creating a 21st century library. But more libraries are exploring the ability to deliver services in other ways. It's not just about the physical collections. It's about coming together and learning how to do things in an experiential way. And we want to think about those spaces in the library that are really places to do things. The closest thing that a traditional library has as a place to do things is a meeting room, a program room. And we think of those big program rooms as ways for the community to come together and enjoy everything that defines the quality of life in that community. I can't help but think of Mrs. Claus in the case of Crystal Lake. What a wonderful opportunity that really shapes many memories of just about every child who lives in the city. Beyond that, there's an opportunity, though, to expand the utility of the library by introducing a series of smaller scaled program spaces. The Storytime room is the space we would think of next, not as large as a program room or the large meeting room, but a space that really is about communal activity, coming together to share stories, to engage in creative activities, to really tie together a story with an activity. These things are wonderful events when they're going on, and you wonder about the great potential that those rooms represent when there isn't a formal program going on. So spaces that can really be opened up and engage the users when there isn't a program going on. Open play, free crafts, These are opportunities to take advantage of the space and really enhance the customer's use of the library, enhance their educational experience within the library, and take advantage of space that has been developed for one purpose and use it for a related but separate purpose. Things like operable walls are a great amenity to introduce into a building because it adds so much in the way of flexibility and utility. Whether it's the Storytime room, the big meeting room, a series of smaller event spaces, flexibility is one of the essential attributes of a contemporary library. If the library can't make use of the space for the majority of the time that it's opened, you really have to question the nature of that space and find ways to increase its utility. So whether it's used for lounging, for study, for seminar space, general computer training, open meetings, book sales, other community events, the key to a successful building is finding multiple uses for that space. And in many ways, the key to flexibility is having the storage space to allow you to reconfigure a room into multiple configurations that support multiple uses. We're going to look now at a series of small scale spaces, recognizing that 2 to 4 to 12 person might be ultimately the most effective way of allocating activity space within a building. I mentioned that drive-up book return is the second most common request we get from communities. The first most desired type of space that many libraries don't have but want, that has direct utility to the community, are these small group activity spaces. And we're going to start with some of the smallest scale, that 1 to 2 person. You think about all of the things that can happen within that space. Tutoring, proctoring, small business entrepreneurial activities, support of returning students, one-on-one conversations, be it enclosed or in an open environment. And then moving on up to something a bit larger, small group meetings, local community groups, public service organizations, neighborhood associations, all find a suitable home in an 8 to 12 person space. You think about the great utility that these spaces offer and the ability for these groups to not only find space to engage directly in their activities, but then by virtue of association to engage the staff and use the collections to supplement those activities. You can see why these are great gateway spaces to a broader use of the library's resources. The next size up really incorporates technology. We can think of this as analog technology or digital technology. In the case of analog, we're thinking hands-on experiences. It can be composting, it can be quilting, it can be robotics, it can be taking apart a computer, all sorts of things that really involve our hands. We can watch someone do it, and then we can repeat that exercise. We can do those exercises as a group without an instructor. We can assemble a group of citizens and come and use the space for a type of activity. It really promotes learning as well as socialization, and it gives people the opportunity to extend their learning beyond reading about how to do something and give them an opportunity to actually do it. These are great places. The other type of space uses digital technology, and whether it's transferring your VHS memories onto some new, more contemporary format, or filming a colleague, a fellow student, yourself, and manipulating those digital images, telling a story, creating content, really practicing a digital form of communication as an extension of those skills that we learn in school. It's more than just writing a story, it's composing and defining in a visual medium or an audio medium and relating a life event, recording an oral history, relaying a life experience, and doing it in a way that recognizes the fact that more and more we're moving into a world of communication by media. Honing those skills, being exposed to those skills, bridging a digital divide when you don't have access to those types of technologies is an essential aspect of a contemporary library. More and more, if you don't have access to the digital world and know how to manipulate those resources, you're going to be left behind. And the library is really a doorway for many people into that world. And then we have the technology that we all think of when we think of in a public library, that mass of PCs. It's the ability to develop high intensity, high quantity computing environments and provide access to a large segment of the community that is a hallmark of computing in the library. Beyond that, though, we want to recognize that people are bringing their own technology into the building and they're using it in different ways, collaborating more and more than ever before. And so the smaller scale environments where not only can we manipulate, but we can share, we can integrate with the outside world. we can find spaces that allow us to plug our technology into someone else's technology and share those images across the planet if desired. The idea is that a library provides you the opportunity to use technology the way you want to use it and use it with whom you want to use it. This is a bold new world for libraries, and it's one that offers the greatest potential down the road. It's an exciting time to be thinking about the potential that a library space can offer in the world of technology. I don't want to get too wrapped up in technology. As wonderful as it is, libraries are not about technology. It's just another tool. And all of those tools are used to improve people's lives. And we want to think about that wide variety of people that will be coming into the building. And it's not just an average person. We come into the building at different points in our life with different abilities, different attributes. And we want to recognize that the library needs to serve all of these people. I want to focus on two user groups as exemplars of this vision. The first group is the youngest user. And you think about the wonderful mind that a toddler brings into the building and how eager it is to learn and what wonderful ways we've developed to allow that learning. So beyond the normal collection, picture books, which are wonderful, board books, puzzles, we want to acknowledge that there's ways to learn by interacting with their peers. And it's funny to think of toddlers as having peer groups, but they do have peer groups. They have mentors, the 4-year-olds. They have caregivers, and they have all sorts of opportunities to learn by doing. And we want to provide those opportunities that model real life. We want to provide those opportunities that look like play, but are actually the rudiments of mathematics. And we want to provide those opportunities where it's just learning how to be together, how to socialize, how to share, how to work through problems. And the library is a great opportunity for all of that. So when we think about designing contemporary library space for these youngest users, we're acknowledging the fact that they're not there alone. They come with caregivers, with parents, with siblings. They're interested in all sorts of technology. They're interested in all sorts of manipulatives, hands-on learning. And they're interested in watching what their peers are doing, what their older siblings are doing, and they're interested in trying things for themselves at their own pace. And what we found is that if you mingle all of these opportunities together, you'll find a lot of interaction between age groups that would normally look askance at stooping to the level of a 6-year-old, stooping to the level of a 2-year-old. And you find a lot of collaborative, engaging activity between the library's various users. You also find it a great opportunity for parents to share stories while they're keeping an eye on their kids. It's a great opportunity for parents to share life stories as well as provide their children with an opportunity to fill those wonderful seeking minds. The other group we want to think about are seniors. We've described a library that can really be quite active. To many users, this can be overwhelming. Acoustics in a building like this really have to be controlled. And if you're looking for a place to get away from it all, because noise really, or that activity level, really starts to disorient or intrude on your thought process, we want attributes that support focused work or reflective contemplation or just that desire to get away from activity to be found and to be found easily. So things like lounge spaces, focused reading spaces, study areas, all have those traditional elements that we associate with the library. There is a place to find quiet. Sometimes we do that just because it supports what we're doing. Sometimes we want those spaces because it supports the age that we find ourselves at. We want to recognize that people come with mobility issues as we age. I'm starting to age. I can appreciate the desire for brighter light, easier control over the light for a specific task. We want to acknowledge that sometimes we need a little help getting out of a chair, and something we can push against is very helpful. So we want comfort as well as ease of use. And we want to acknowledge that sometimes we want to sit in a space and be able to see the activity without hearing it. So thinking about the elderly as well as the young are hallmarks of an approach to building design that really focuses on people. It's easy to think about libraries as places for technology or places for books. Ultimately, though, it's a place for people. And we want a wide variety of spaces that support who we are, what our use is, what our needs are on a particular day. So finding places to squirrel ourselves away and find quiet, to sit and watch what's going on, to be found. Sometimes we do want to be found. I'm thinking of you, teen users. The idea is that a library provides different types of spaces and can accommodate a wide variety of users. And it puts people in environments where they can be comfortable. We can control noise, we can control light, we might get a view, and we certainly have a wonderful opportunity to interact with collections, with staff, with technology. So ultimately, thinking about the library as a place for people is the ultimate design goal, and it's the essential attribute of a 21st century library. The last thing I want to talk about is staff. It's easy to overlook the role of staff. In many ways, it's the greatest resource that the library has assembled. Their ability to understand, comprehend, provide access and guidance to all of the technology and all of the print resources that are available in the modern world is a core service that the library provides. And what we want to encourage is that easy interaction between the public and the staff. That expertise really does no one any good if they can't share it with the community. And so we're looking for opportunities to provide quick help, easy help, one-on-one help, mobile help, tech-savvy help, and really provide it where you want it, when you want it. The mantra of "ask me, I'm here to help" is the essential element in planning staff support space within the building. To free the staff up to provide that high level of interaction, we have to automate the material handling process. I think a librarian is much more effective when they're engaging with the public than when they're sorting through a pile of books and trying to decide which one goes on which shelf. We have machines that can handle the sorting process. We don't have machines that can help you with your inquiries. So the thought is to free the staff from the day-to-day materials handling process and liberate them to engage with the community on a more regular and higher quality basis. It takes a lot of time to develop new programs, and it takes a lot of time to add value to the typical library visit. And it's time that can be found within an existing staffing model by freeing the staff up from the materials handling process. So this is a lot to take in. There are many, many attributes to a 21st century library. Not all of them apply in every community. It behooves a community to step back and think about those things that are relative in their experience, to anticipate things that they might need, and to prioritize those experiences that have value to them. There are some things that go without saying. A contemporary building has to meet code. It has to be safe. It has to be energy efficient. There are other things that take considerable thought. How far do you want to go in providing programming to the community? How far do you want to integrate technology into the typical library experience? How much interaction do you want to afford the public with their library staff? How much space for creative exploration, active play for youth, hands-on learning for teens and adults? Decisions in this area impact the size of the building, the quality of the building, the cost of the project, and ultimately its relevance in your everyday life. All of these attributes are really tied together, and they can't be thought of as isolated elements. I would encourage you all to anticipate that these buildings are being built for generations yet to come, and that the libraries that we experienced growing up, the libraries of our parents, are not going to be relevant to our children or their children. And so in many ways, we have to think beyond our own experience and try and anticipate the changes that are yet to come. I wish you well as you consider these things and look forward to incorporating your vision into a specific solution for your service needs. Thank you.